scale down was probably one that was present in all the three. Then we started with beauty, emotion, and care. Then change in attitude, repurposing, more efficiency, and ending with prefabrication, combination, and that was very interesting, freedom in the end. But I'm from the Chamber of Architects, so I might start with Jakob and the notion of beauty. I loved in your presentation, there were two concepts present. One was, if you love it, you maintain it. Seems to be true. And beauty is in everyone's eyes different. But let's say that we have historical buildings which are long-lasting because they are beautiful. So they will be repaired and maintained with love. But do you know a modern building which is sustainable by beauty?
First of all, I think the sustainability by beauty is really something. If it's great, it stays longer. It will be maintained. It does not mean that we should not strive for the best construction materials and all those techniques, maybe CRE, just to make that clear. And I think there are still modern buildings that will stay for quite a long time, and I have no idea if it's sustainable by materials, but it is sustainable in a big way. As an example, the Elbphilharmonie by Herzog de Meuron. I think it will not be torn down within the next 20 years. It will stay.
Thank you very much. So, concept of beauty, sustainability, and just reminding all of you, Slido, Marek.
Thank you very much. Yes, please. You can ask questions to our audience, from our audience to the panelists through the Slido. Of course, there is a possibility, if you'd like to, also ask your question live, if you'd like to, but Slido works, from our experience, the best, so please feel free to ask through Slido. And my question would be to Vittorio. We, as a Slovak Building Council, are leading the Alliance for Modern Timber Constructions, and we are struggling with fire safety. That's actually something what blocks us from building the type of buildings you are showing as a standard way of building from CRE. So tell us, how do you deal with fire safety standards in different countries? Because that's probably not only Slovakia, but globally a problem.
That's usually when I speak with clients, the first question is how much it costs per square meter. Second, are you fire compliant? So the advantage of using timber hybrid is that we have concrete. And concrete solves a lot of issue for fire transmission between floor to floor. That's usually what they ask in fire regulations. And for timber, for us, every time we approach a project, we always want timber visible. And if you have this solution, you need to oversize the columns. But because we use standard components, we already consider this RAI 90, 60, 120 in our projects. And so we are based on how the timber manufacturer produced their columns. So we can still be cost competitive even we are oversize the columns. So this would be our strategy. Every CRE building, usually it's also one of its kind in every country. And so we are pretty used to speak with regulators and authorities and really guide them and prove them based on all the data we already gathered through our network that, yes, the fire resistance in this building was this one, or the facade details is already tested and proved in another country. And that's the advantage to be in Europe. We manage also in Canada, that's true. But the advantage of Euro is that with Eurocode and all those local, let's say, connections, it's much easier by oversizing and by proving the test of other buildings that's possible.
Okay, you sound like an ideal team member for our alliance, so let's talk about it afterwards. I have a question for Kasper. You probably had two different groups of audience. One group who agreed with you that this is possible. Maybe you had another group saying that for our field, home office doesn't work. Especially a group of people feeling jealous about the cottage you showed, including me. So the question is, you talked about working from home, and how do you think new teams will evolve into something like this for the future? And there is a question here. I will steal this question also to make it even more complicated for you. How do you? Oh, the question is not here anymore.
There are two of them. One is dealing with the numbers. So are Finns different? Because there were different figures about the efficiency of home office companies in the United States to return to the decision to make them or force them to return to the offices. And the other is, what is the role of sociologists, demographers, and other social sciences in your work? And do you have them in your team when, let's say, probably you don't need to force the Finns, but here, how to motivate people? Yeah.
Yes. Well, first of all, maybe I will start with the question about which different fields of competence you need in this field. And yes, we have on board people that have various background. Just as an example, we have one doctor in the efficiency of knowledge work, so basically sociology background there. Of course, obviously we need architects, economically thinking people, but yes, it's a holistic approach with, of course, service design is one important part of that. So we need to bundle this together. To make successful concepts. But then what comes to the real interesting question, that how do you manage multi-locational work and how do you make it efficient, and how do you ensure that you're efficient? And that's really the tricky part, I would say. It needs a total different new kind of management setting. We need the way we manage teams, it needs to be reorganized. We must really change how we structure our work week. When do people meet? Where? To what purpose? Earlier, maybe when everybody was at the office, that kind of happened without special facilitation, but now being multi-locational, it requires much from the management to think how work is structured. And the important and difficult thing is, of course, new people coming into the organization, coming into the teams. How do you ensure that they become a part of the community? Well, there are of course, for instance, you can name like 2 senior mentors to them that say, okay, it's your job to mentor this new youngster to come into the team to learn the culture, and then it's up to them to make up a plan. Okay, what do we do? Well, we meet once a week, every Wednesday, for 2 hours, and do this and this together, work together, and so forth. So you need to manage and structure the way we work in a new way. And of course, there's a lot of problems, but still, looking at all the metrics we measure about how people, their job satisfaction and all the results. I mean, that looks good and promising, but then again, there are some problems. There are maybe people that fall somehow out of the community. We need to think in what ways can we get them back. But I don't believe that the medicine is to say that everybody back at the office 5 days a week or you're fired. That doesn't work.
Thank you very much. Maybe if I may have a question for Martin. Like you being ESG manager within Slovak context, your comment, how would you see applicability of the mentioned in Slovak context of anything that was mentioned? So,
generally speaking, I think all of the presentations were absolutely brilliant. I admire and I'm very honored to be in this company. We do the transition ourselves as a developer company. We are one of the largest companies active here. And basically, it's twofold. We are transforming the inner workings of our company as such, and we are trying to make our projects more sustainable. That means also that we are looking at what Marek was saying, that we are looking at bigger use of timber, for example. We are decarbonizing our technologies, using more renewable energies, etc. So all of these are very relevant, and we are just hoping that we will be able to help the transformation also on this slow market, because we are in a specific situation here compared to our colleagues here, where the government is driving the change. In our situation, it is to a large extent private companies and NGOs who are driving the change.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have a question for Jakob. And this is very, I think, right on spot question related to daylight and the way how you evaluate the daylight in your projects. Is it like it's probably not self-answering question. It's not probably just by feeling that it's a good daylight. You are probably taking some simulations or some technical background calculations for evaluating daylight. But still, what is a typical approach when you account for a beauty and a daylight and the way how your process works?
We evaluate in certain projects, like museum projects. Yeah, you have really to evaluate a lot, but and really do calculations and simulations. But let's say for an office or a residential, if you are close to what is common, then it's not that much of calculation. But you can have a certain, connection between feeling well and daylight. I think as we are humans, we want to be outside and not always with artificial light. So you could then say, the more daylight, the better. But it is not that easy. Because there's also, like, I've never been inside, but the building of Baumschlager Eberle in the 2226 has small windows. It might be a good building. So it's too easy to say big windows, good building, small windows, bad building. And there's a sum of kind of historic buildings with small windows that are beautiful.
Thank you. I will continue with questioning the process. Vittorio, a question for you. What are the planning implications for real estate developers considering a CRE building for their next project? So what is a typical way of working?
Yeah, I mentioned during the presentation a little bit, but we know that the typical approach when a developer look at a building is like, okay, let's plan it, and let's plan that at least 5 to 10 companies can bid for this project. We understand that is the normal procedure. But I like the picture that Casper had of these 2 dogs, right? That you need to push them to think that if you want to obtain sustainable, high quality building, you need to go away from this approach. And what we always fight, but at the end is an exchange, because we need, of course, a real estate developer is a very hard job, we understand that. But if they do decision early on and they commit to a system, doesn't need to be our system, but we suggest our system, they can be sure of the quantities, they can be sure how the building look like, and then they can maybe focus together with the architect on something else, maybe really focus on the inside of the building. But to do that, they need to make decision early. And so usually it's hard to keep the building as flexible for a bidding process as possible, but instead you need to make it for one topic, for one system, or at least try to keep it for maximum 2, something like that.
Thank you. It sounds like you're talking about speculative building industry, and the question goes straight to you, Martin. How do you approach the speculative building? Because probably that's the typical process also for you as a developer, and you are an architect. So what is your opinion? What is the biggest obstacle or challenge to really do it the way as Vittorio was saying?
Well, we have this triangle of arguments or targets that we have in the company as a developer. One is the economy. That's the first and foremost. Everybody wants to make money. On the other hand, my ambition was always to merge it with sustainability and beauty as an architect. And we architects have a privilege, or maybe are expected a little bit to push the boundaries and to have more freedom to challenge the status quo. So that's what we are trying to achieve, and always challenge and bring new options and technologies. So I think this is absolutely very important to have somebody like my small, beautiful ESG team in the company, rather than relying on some third-party consultants. That's one thing. This is helping with the transition of the company very much. On the other hand, I think it is very important also that we are open outwards. We're not only focused inside our company, and we have a very good network of communication with other developers of the market. We keep track of all the new things. So one of the examples is the Slovak Green Building Council and all the other networking and NGOs that we have active here. So I think sharing like this is absolutely critical for us as well.
Thank you.
I have one question for Jakob, a bit provocative. It's like, what would be the most radical approach for building industry and architecture to the sustainable future?
Yeah, it's to build not.
I had to. Sorry. Thank you.
That was quite straightforward, wasn't it?
It's the elephant in the classroom.
I say it as an architect. I make my money with planning, but really, more and more, we talk to our clients, like companies, Bosch, Rewe, whatever, build smaller, much smaller. So maybe then some people say, oh, it's so crowded on Wednesday, I will come Friday afternoon.
Yes, but it's also in the respect of what's happening also in European Union with the housing stock, existing buildings. And so it's the big topic of reuse, transformation, and yes, scaling down. That's so not to make it just so simple that we don't build anything. Yes, that's the most radical. That's what I asked. But let's speak about, yes, the transition, transformation. I think that's an essential role in your team as well, Kasper. I had one number, 1860. What was related to 1860? It's my recollection that was wrong, that something in Finland started in 1860.
1860. I think we got our new own currency that year, if I can remember correctly.
But in 19th century, you mentioned that already you started to manage the building stock together.
Oh yes, our organization was founded then. Yes, that's true. That's true. Yeah, we
tried to find the information.
We had our 200-year birthday party some 10 years ago. Yes.
This is just to be a bit envious that it's very difficult to imagine in our context that we would have this kind of expertise of 200 years. Yep, thank you.
And sorry, Jakob, I will dig even deeper. I was only started, but I will take my chances. So you talk about beauty, emotions, and emotion from the building. What is more important then? The use of sustainable materials or beauty and emotion? Beautiful. Sorry, colleagues, sorry.
Beautiful buildings are so important, because if we just think about sustainable materials, then we get into a new eco-functionalism. And we were like, for example, in the 1960s, we were quite thinking the best is if we have residential blocks in a line, they have good light from this side and they are efficient and so on. And we forgot about urbanism. So really, I think in that case, I would say even build a beautiful building and it's a little bit less sustainable material, but it stays for 150 years, than something, the best technical solutions, and you get to have rid of it after 30 years because it was not functional, not beautiful, you don't love it. yeah, in that case, I say beauty is sustainable.
Thank you. And Kasper was agreeing with you when you were talking that build smaller or don't build at all. Of course, it comes together with the topic you had, and that's home office. But this might sound critical, but I'll be very realistic, and I will bring it to the environment we have here in Slovakia, where people are not really having space to work from home, for example. And I believe there are some groups of people with the same situation in Finland or in any other country. So what is your approach, how to deal with situations like this? Because for work, you need to have some environment conditions, so which also have to be beautiful in some sort of position if you're creative. So how do you deal with this approach?
Yes, of course. I mean, that's it's important to understand that different people have different needs. It can be, how they personally just feel. They want to have people around them when they work. Or then they don't have possibility to have a office desk at their home. Then of course that's why we build a network of these co-working spaces where there is for everybody that wants to go to the office and work. We provide that possibility. But we don't provide just one office. We provide a network of 25 offices in the whole country, as well as these smaller hubs. So actually, it's more. You have more to choose from, and you make the choice yourself. And I think that's the real added value to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And maybe the question I have for Martin starts from the discussion with Richard we had about functional adaptability. So that's also maybe the future of construction, that you build buildings which might be a hospital in 15 years, or apartment buildings or office buildings in 20 years. So is this something you consider, Martin, in your approach as a developer, or is this a topic you deal with?
It's a huge topic, and also it comes with circularity. Flexibility is absolutely critical, because we know from our buildings that basically there is exchange of clients in the buildings very frequently, plus some are expanding, some are shrinking, so you need to have flexibility really to adapt and adjust. That goes for internal partitions, let's say, but also to HVAC systems, to lighting, to everything else. So you need to have that flexibility, and basically I would expand it even to the whole buildings, because in some cases, that happens also with buildings. You need to expand the building, or maybe even dismount the building and use it somewhere else maybe. That's very typical, for example, for Holland or some other countries where they're able to disassemble a building and use the components to build something else. So I think this is the future.
Thank you. Question for Vittorio. How many trees or tons of timber, if you like, are used to build one building of 10,000 square meters? I think that's a good question, isn't it?
Dear anonymous person that asked this question, I don't know the amount of trees, but what I do know is that for a bigger building is 30,000 square meter, the timber use regrew in Austria in 1 minute, something like that. Why? Because we tend to think about that the timber use in a timber grows only if you plant new trees. That's true. But in parallel, you need to think about the Austria. I think that's where the timber was coming from. Is 50% covered by trees, and so every day the section of the tree increases minimally, but collectively of the 50% of the entire country, then it's a massive increase. And so, yes, of course, there were a lot of trees needed, but at the same time, we use a responsible way to use timber, and in our opinion, is sustainable because it grew pretty fast and also further supports the industry that manage the entire forest in a more sustainable way.
Thank you. So my sub-question would be, do you really stand on resourcing only from sustainable forests?
Yes, because all our buildings are going to be always LEED or a BREEAM or OGNI, I saw also here. And so if they need to do that, they are going to check where the timber is coming from. So we cannot allow ourselves
So the
to...
FSC and PFC
Yes,
is something
PFC,
very standard
exactly.
for you. That's
they
great.
have to. And I think one of the know-how that Austria is really export is to really prove that if you have a forest, you need, actually it's better to maintain it instead of just plant trees and don't maintain them, because they're really good in planting a tree strategically and cultivate it, and they're really good also exporting this. So the more you use those products, the more also incentivation for also share this with other companies, stories, so all that I do that.
Makes absolutely sense. Jakob, when the first building will be built in Bratislava from Corecraft? Tell us the date only.
We lost competitions in Bratislava, so we would like to do that. We wanting.
So this is an offer for the developers present.
No, it's an office. So we have a developer, we have a system, we have the architect, we have who is going to maintain them. Perfect.
It sounds like a good discussion after this discussion.
Martin, we've got a suggestion for
But
you.
it should be a building that is really needed.
Does it mean
Maybe it's a school or whatever. I don't know what you need here.
Does it mean beauty is expensive?
No, I don't think. We are very. I don't think beauty is expensive. Really not. Not at all.
Good. Let's move on then. Well, we have. I don't know if you answered all the questions from the audience.
No, I see one again
from
to, and one for Vittoria and another one for Jakob. Color is an aspect of light. How do you include color for beauty?
No, I have no answer about this. I'm a bit strange with colors, as you can see, and as beauty is in the eye of everyone.
That was great. We could identify you on each picture, actually.
Yeah, we could search a lot of different colors in our project. There is a lot.
Thank you. So maybe Vittorio, yours, more technical.
You read it?
Please, Ole.
Me, I don't know. It's a bit small, but may you speak more about the kinds of decisions you needed to discuss early in the SXB projects, those that made the project more expensive?
Philip, nice question. It's connected with the previous question that you asked me. So Edge, the developer of these more sustainable timber buildings in Germany, of course, wanted more options. And we suggest, look, if you use our system, you need to optimize the building. You need to follow this grid that we push him to follow. There should not be so many different type of floor slab. You should try to optimize the floor slab to a minimum of, 10. At the end in the building, there were 144 different formworks, which again, at the end is a good ending story because they made a profit from this building and they were happy. But if they would have listened to us, in my opinion, would have made even more profit because they would have a standardized building, more or less with the same outcome. But they wanted to keep these decisions and all the decisions related to the facade as later. We need to figure out other things. And this really made also replanning the buildings once we decided to make it with CRE cost consuming because you need to go to the architect, say, architect, this is the new structural scheme, change the building accordingly. And so these are all processes that we understand is typical of the construction. Change doesn't come suddenly, and I think Edge will learn from that for sure. But again, if you want to use a system and to get really the advantages prefabrication, you need to make decision early. And that's part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe for the end, we might give you a space to make some final conclusion from your perspective, which you would like the audience to take home. Maybe we can start with you, Martin.
Basically, I just hope that we will have more opportunities for exchanges like this, because I think this is good for everybody to take inspiration and also to foster some cooperation, because we have our guests from Finland, Austria, from other countries. That's super exciting, really, to make these connections and to learn from each other.
Jakob?
can't be different that I talk about beauty. I would say in every decision we take, we ask, will that building be loved? And don't make the mistake to ask too quickly maybe the citizens, because Eiffel Tower would not exist if you would have asked the people.
Thank
Correct.
Think out of the box, try working from anywhere, find new ways of doing cooperation, have more fun, enjoy life.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Vittorio?
I heard that there are some challenges here also to make those buildings. In our experience, we can see we operate in more than 60 countries. Change comes from private. In a lot of our buildings, actually, it was the private that really pushes for that. Of course, you need to deal with the public. But I think if you are the right team and the right arguments, ammunitions against, let's say, the public sectors, they will hear you. Not because you are a good job, of course, you will push for that, but because the market wants this. All these big companies, they have as a standard policy to rent only in sustainable, potentially net zero building. This is coming, and it's coming also here. And so I think the developers and everybody, the entire sector, will, together with the public, will be pushed to do this. And the earlier you consider those things, the earlier you're better in the market.
Thank you very much. And I have to say, this is the first panel discussion in our Green Building Summit where there is a beginning of a new project, maybe, in Slovakia, and solving the problem with timber we have in our alliance. So let's bring the discussion outside of the stage and let's do it.
Hoping to nudge it in the right direction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.